The world is a reflection of what we assume to be true, whether conscious or unconscious. Every belief, no matter how small, contributes to the creation of the life we experience. Our assumptions, when held with intensity, attract the corresponding conditions into our lives. This process is not some mystical force, but a fundamental law that governs the universe. By mastering our assumptions, we can deliberately shape our destiny. This principle is simple yet profound. What we think about consistently is what we bring into existence. Our world responds to our inner reality, and by altering our thoughts, we alter the course of our lives. This law operates at all times, whether we are aware of it or not. It is not about what we want, but what we believe to be true. In this process, imagination plays a crucial role. Imagination is not just a fantasy, it is the key to unlocking our desired future. When we vividly imagine our desires as already fulfilled, we send a powerful signal to the universe. This signal aligns with the energy needed to manifest the outcome. The mind does not distinguish between what is real and what is imagined, making this an incredibly potent tool. When we saturate our minds with the image of our ideal reality, it starts to become our dominant thought. Our dominant thoughts shape our emotions, which then influence our actions. By focusing on what we wish to manifest, we begin to attract circumstances that reflect those desires. The more we dwell on positive assumptions, the quicker they materialize. This is not a mere exercise in wishful thinking. It is an active creative force. Our inner state becomes the blueprint for the outer world. One of the most powerful tools in this practice is the art of assumption. Assumption means to take for granted that the thing we desire is already ours. We must embody the feeling of having already received our desires as though they are already a reality. This assumption creates a magnetic pull that attracts circumstances and opportunities that align with that state of being. When we assume our desires are already fulfilled, we enter into resonance with them. This resonance acts as a vibrational match that attracts experiences of the same frequency. Assumption eliminates doubt and opens the door to infinite possibilities. It shifts the mind from a place of lack to one of abundance. The key is to persist in the assumption, even when external circumstances suggest otherwise. The moment we let go of doubt, the law begins to work in our favor. We must also understand the importance of feeling. Feeling is the bridge between the mind and the manifestation. Without the emotional charge, the assumption lacks the power to attract the desired outcome. The emotions you feel while assuming a desire to be already fulfilled are the energetic fuel for the manifestation process. These emotions are what draw the circumstances into your experience. It is not enough to think about your desire. You must feel it as if it is already true. When your feelings align with your assumptions, the process of manifestation accelerates. Feeling a sense of gratitude, joy, and satisfaction as though your desire is already in your life will draw it nearer. The stronger the emotion, the more powerful the assumption becomes. This creates a dynamic feedback loop where the feelings reinforce the thoughts and the thoughts fuel the emotions. The law of attraction responds to the vibration of your thoughts and feelings, and it is always working regardless of your awareness. This universal law is not selective. It does not judge whether your thoughts are good or bad, positive or negative. It simply responds to your vibrational state. If you consistently focus on lack, you attract more lack. If you focus on abundance, you will draw more abundance into your life. It is not about hoping or wishing for something to change. It is about embodying the state of being you desire. When you believe that you are already abundant, the universe reflects this belief back to you. The law is neutral. It simply brings into your life that which matches your internal state. Patience is key when applying these principles. Often we expect instant results, but the universe operates on its own timeline. The energy you put out today may take time to manifest in the physical world. However, This does not mean that progress is not occurring. Every thought, every assumption, every feeling contributes to the unfolding of your desires. Even when you cannot see immediate results, trust that the process is in motion. The more you persist in your assumptions, the more you align with the reality you wish to create. Trust in the law and know that everything is unfolding according to the perfect timing for you. It is essential to let go of resistance. Resistance comes in many forms, such as doubt, fear, or impatience. These negative emotions block the flow of energy and slow down the manifestation process. When you resist what is, you are not in alignment with your desired outcome. Accepting the present moment without judgment is crucial to attracting what you desire. Trust that the universe is working on your behalf, even when you cannot see the results immediately. Releasing resistance allows your desires to flow naturally towards you. The key is to align your energy with the outcome rather than struggle against it. One of the most transformative practices is to live in the end result. This means imagining and feeling that you have already achieved your desires, rather than focusing on the journey. The end result is the state of mind that attracts all that you want. By living in this end result, you align yourself with the reality you wish to create. This practice is a powerful way to shift your mindset and align your actions with your goals. Instead of waiting for circumstances to change, live as though they have already changed. This shift in perspective creates a ripple effect that transforms your reality. Another crucial element is self-belief. If you do not believe that what you desire is possible, you will not be able to manifest it. Belief is the foundation upon which everything else is built. When you fully believe in your own power to create, you align with the energy necessary to manifest your desires. Doubt is the enemy of manifestation, as it introduces a conflicting energy that repels your desires. On the other hand, absolute faith in your ability to create allows you to move with certainty and confidence. Belief in yourself is not just about having a positive attitude, but about understanding the innate power within you to shape your world. It is also important to remember that the law of attraction works on a subconscious level. Often, our deepest beliefs are hidden beneath the surface of our conscious mind. These subconscious beliefs can either support or hinder our manifestation efforts. It is vital to become aware of any limiting beliefs that may be operating behind the scenes. Once you identify these beliefs, you can consciously work to replace them with more empowering assumptions. Changing your beliefs at the subconscious level requires consistent effort and repetition. Over time, these new beliefs will become the driving force behind your manifestations. The process of creation is ongoing and ever-evolving. As you continue to refine your assumptions and align with your desires, you are constantly shaping your future. Each moment offers the opportunity to shift your thoughts and feelings in the direction of your dreams. The universe is always responding to your vibration, and with every thought, you are sending out a signal. This signal is what attracts the circumstances and events that shape your life. By consciously directing your energy, you can guide your life toward your desired outcomes. The power of focus cannot be overstated. Where your attention goes, energy flows. By focusing on what you want rather than what you do not want, you magnetize those things into your life. The more you focus on your desires, the more they expand. On the other hand, focusing on problems or lack only serves to perpetuate them. Focus is a tool that allows you to direct the flow of energy toward your goals. It is not about ignoring challenges, but choosing to place your energy on solutions. By keeping your attention fixed on your desired outcome, you create a mental and emotional environment that supports the manifestation process. It is also helpful to maintain a state of gratitude throughout the process. Gratitude is one of the most powerful emotions you can experience. When you are grateful for what you already have, you signal to the universe that you are ready to receive more. Gratitude shifts your vibration from lack to abundance, attracting more things to be thankful for. When you live in a state of gratitude, you align yourself with the frequency of receiving. This emotional state amplifies your assumptions and accelerates the manifestation process. Living in harmony with the natural rhythms of life also contributes to successful manifestation. Nature operates on cycles, and by aligning with these cycles, we can more effectively create our desired reality. The ebb and flow of life are a reflection of the ebb and flow of energy within us. Understanding that there are times for action and times for rest can help you avoid burnout and frustration. Trust the process and allow things to unfold in their own time. Another important aspect is to take inspired action. Manifestation is not a passive process. It requires you to take steps toward your desires. These actions do not need to be forceful or strenuous. Instead, they should feel natural and in alignment with your assumptions. When you are living in the assumption that your desires are already fulfilled, you will be guided to take inspired action. This action will feel effortless and aligned with the flow of your desires. Trust that the universe will guide you to the right opportunities, people, and experiences that will bring you closer to your goals. The more you practice these principles, the more natural they will become. Over time, you will develop a deep sense of knowing that you are the creator of your reality. The process of manifestation will become second nature, and you will be able to manifest your desires with ease. This is not about forcing things to happen. It is about trusting in your ability to align with the energy of creation. As you continue to practice and refine these principles, you will begin to see your desires materialize more quickly and effortlessly. Trust is a fundamental element in this process. Trusting the universe, the process, and yourself is crucial to successful manifestation. When you trust, you let go of the need for control and allow things to unfold in their own time. Trusting that everything is happening for your highest good helps you maintain a positive, focused mindset. This trust is what allows the universe to work on your behalf, bringing you the opportunities and experiences that align with your desires. Your internal dialogue plays a significant role in the manifestation process. The words you speak to yourself shape your beliefs and your reality. If your internal dialogue is filled with negativity, doubt, or fear, these thoughts will manifest in your life. On the other hand, a positive, affirming internal dialogue reinforces your assumptions and accelerates the manifestation process. Speak to yourself as if your desires have already been fulfilled, and your reality will reflect this new belief. This simple shift in language can have a profound impact on the outcome of your desires. It is important to focus on the end result rather than the steps to get there. The how is not your concern. The universe has its own way of bringing about the desired outcome, and often it is beyond your imagination. By focusing on the end result, you align yourself with the energy of that outcome, which then draws the necessary circumstances into your life. Trust that the universe knows how to deliver what you want in the most efficient way possible. Let go of any attachment to the process and focus solely on the end result. The law of attraction works at all times, not just when we are consciously thinking about our desires. Our subconscious mind is constantly at work, drawing experiences into our lives based on our deep-seated beliefs. By shifting these subconscious beliefs, we can change the course of our lives. This is why it is important to be mindful of our thoughts and assumptions at all times. The more we focus on what we desire, and the more we embody the feeling of having it, the more we will attract it into our lives. A key to successful manifestation is to practice consistency. Like any skill, manifestation requires practice and consistency. The more you consistently focus on your desires, the more natural it becomes to assume that they are already true. The more you feel the emotions of having your desires fulfilled, the more powerfully you attract them into your life. Consistency creates momentum, and with momentum comes the rapid manifestation of your desires. Whether you are visualizing, affirming, or simply living in the assumption, consistency is essential to success. It is essential to release attachment to the outcome. When you are overly attached to how and when your desires will manifest, you create resistance. This resistance blocks the flow of energy and slows down the manifestation process. Detach from the outcome and trust that it will come to you in the right way and at the right time. The more you let go of attachment, the more freely the universe can deliver your desires. This is about trusting the process and having faith that everything is unfolding for your highest good. The law of attraction is always in motion. It does not wait for the right circumstances, nor does it hesitate based on external appearances. It is constantly responding to your thoughts and feelings, bringing you experiences that match your dominant assumptions. If you focus on love, abundance, and success, the universe will deliver those things to you. If you focus on fear, lack, and limitation, the universe will deliver more of those experiences. The key is to consistently focus on what you want, rather than what you do not want. Every thought carries energy, and this energy attracts like energy. Your thoughts, whether positive or negative, send out a vibration into the universe that attracts experiences of the same frequency. The more positive and aligned your thoughts are with your desires, the more quickly they will manifest. The more negative and contradictory your thoughts are, the more you will attract experiences that match that energy. By controlling your thoughts and aligning them with what you desire, you can begin to shape your reality. Living in alignment with your desires requires you to embody the feelings of having already achieved them. This is the essence of living in the end. When you can feel the joy, satisfaction, and fulfillment of having your desires now, you are in the most powerful state for manifestation. Your feelings are the key to creating the life you want. By consistently living in the end result, you attract all the circumstances, people, and opportunities that align with your desires. The process of manifestation requires a deep level of trust in the unseen. You may not always be able to see the changes occurring on a physical level, but know that the universe is working behind the scenes. Every thought, feeling, and assumption you have is contributing to the unfolding of your desires. Trust that the law is always working, even when you cannot see it. Believe in the unseen forces at work, and know that everything is aligning perfectly for your benefit. The law of attraction is not a passive force. It requires you to actively engage with it. It requires you to focus on your desires, feel them as if they are already true, and assume that they are on their way. By doing so, you become a magnet for your desires. The more you embody these principles, the more you will see the world around you shift in response. Remember that you are the creator of your reality, and the law of attraction is always working in your favor when you align your thoughts, feelings, and assumptions with your desires. If this content made sense to you, don't keep this knowledge to yourself. Share this video with someone who needs to hear this message. Help others see that they too have the power to transform their financial reality. And remember, this is just the beginning. Subscribe to the channel to continue receiving content like this, which will help you grow, evolve, and achieve the life you deserve. Leave your comment below, telling us how you plan to put this into practice, and let's build a community focused on prosperity and transformation together. Good evening, my friends. Tonight I want to share with you something that may disturb you, and yet liberate you completely. As I speak to you now, somewhere in this great city of ours, a man sleeps in a mansion worth millions, and another man sleeps beneath a bridge. Both are dreaming, but only one of them knows that he is the dreamer. Before this evening is over, I will have shattered everything you believe about wealth, about money, about success itself. Stay with me. Just last week, after my lecture here in Los Angeles, a young man approached me, well-dressed fellow, articulate, seemingly intelligent. He said to me, "Mr. Goddard, I have been faithfully visualizing wealth for 6 months now. Every day I see myself with money. I feel it in my hands. I imagine counting it. But nothing, absolutely nothing, has changed in my outer world. What am I doing wrong? I looked at this man for a long moment, and then I asked him one simple question that turned his face white. My friend, when you imagine having this wealth, do you imagine yourself getting it from somewhere, or do you imagine yourself as the man who already has it? He stammered. He struggled. And in that moment of silence, he understood the difference between begging and assuming. You see, my friends, there is only one difference. One difference between what you call a billionaire and what you call a pauper. That difference is not money. That difference is not opportunity. That difference is not luck or family or education or any external circumstance whatsoever. The only difference is assumption. The man you call wealthy assumes that he is wealthy. The man you call poor assumes that he is not wealthy. But here is what will shock you to your very core. Both assumptions are equally false. Both are states of consciousness. Both are simply different dreams, being dreamed by the same dreamer. Every billionaire whose name you know, every fortune you admire, they did not first become wealthy, and then develop what you call a wealthy mindset. No, my friends, they first assumed the consciousness of wealth, and the world being nothing more than consciousness pushed out, had no choice but to conform to that assumption. There is no such thing as a billionaire. You see, there is only consciousness assuming itself to be a billionaire. Let me tell you of a woman I knew personally in New York City. Her name was Sarah, and she worked as a secretary for a small law firm. Her salary? $40 a week. In 1940, mind you, barely enough to survive. But Sarah discovered something that her friends, her family, even her employer never knew. Every evening when she returned to her tiny apartment, she would lie upon her bed and enter into a most extraordinary state. She would feel herself, not see herself, not imagine herself, but feel herself signing checks for thousands of dollars. Not someday, not when her ship came in, not when she won the lottery, right now. She would feel the pen in her hand, the weight of it, the smoothness of the check as she wrote $10,000 with the casual ease of a woman for whom such amounts were routine. How does it feel? She would ask herself to write a check for $10,000 and feel nothing but the mild boredom of paying another bill. Her friends thought she had lost her mind. Sarah, they would cry, you make $40 a week. Stop this nonsense. Come back to reality. But Sarah knew something they did not know. She knew that feeling is the secret, not wishing, not hoping, not believing. Feeling the reality of the wish fulfilled. For 3 months she lived this way. By day she typed letters and answered phones for $40 a week. But by night in consciousness she was a woman of means. Then came the call that changed everything, or rather that revealed what consciousness had already established. A lawyer in Boston informed her that a distant uncle, a man she had met only once as a child at a family gathering, a man whose face she could barely recall, had left her his entire estate, $40,000. But here is the part that proves everything I am teaching you tonight. When that lawyer placed the check in Sarah's hands, she felt no surprise whatsoever, no shock, no I can't believe this is happening. She felt natural. She felt like this was exactly what should happen to a woman like her. Because in consciousness, my friends, she had been a wealthy woman for months. The outer world was simply catching up to what she had already assumed to be true. Now I must tell you something that will disturb every belief you have ever held about the nature of reality itself. You are not trying to attract wealth from some external source. You are wealth. You are every billionaire who has ever lived. You are every fortune that has ever been accumulated. You are every palace, every mansion, every empire that has ever existed. How can I make such an outrageous claim? Because, my friends, there is only one consciousness in all the universe. Everything you see out there, every person, every building, every dollar bill is nothing more than your own consciousness pushed out and made to appear separate from you. The billionaire is not separate from you. The billionaire is you, playing a role in your own infinite dream. But here is the tragedy, the great tragedy of human experience. You think you need to get something you don't have. You think wealth is something external that must come to you from somewhere else. This is the fundamental illusion that keeps humanity in bondage.
You cannot get what you already are, my friends. You can only assume it. You can only feel it. You can only know it. Every dollar that exists is your dollar. Every business empire is your empire. But you have hypnotized yourself into believing you are separate from your own creations, and so you experience them as belonging to others. The poverty you experience is not punishment from God. It is not bad luck. It is not the economy or your background or your circumstances. Poverty is simply the result of assuming you are poor. Nothing more, nothing less. And that assumption, maintained day after day, year after year, hardens into the facts of your experience. But and here is your hope. Wealth is equally simply the result of assuming you are wealthy. And that assumption, maintained with equal persistence, will harden into fact just as surely. I once spoke with a gentleman who had the privilege of meeting John D. Rockefeller in his final years. This man expected to encounter someone obsessed with money, someone who calculated profit and loss every waking moment. Instead, he told me, he met a man who seemed almost indifferent to money. Not careless with it, but as naturally comfortable with it as you or I are comfortable with breathing. Mr. Goddard, he said to me, Rockefeller spoke of money the way most men speak of the weather, as something so natural, so assumed, that it required no special thought or attention. You see, Rockefeller had long ago stopped thinking to money, and had learned to think from money. He had so completely assumed the consciousness of wealth that money flowed to him, not because he pursued it, but because he had become the type of man to whom money naturally flows. There is a principle here that I want you to grasp. The moment you begin to worry about money is the moment you stop having easy access to it. Why? Because worry is assumption of lack, and what you assume, you must experience. But consider this. When do you worry about your next breath? Never. Why? Because you assume you will breathe. You take it completely for granted. And because you assume it so naturally, breathing happens without effort, without anxiety, without conscious direction. The relationship a truly wealthy person has with money is identical to your relationship with breathing, natural, assumed, taken for granted. So how do you make this transformation? How do you move from the consciousness that assumes lack to the consciousness that assumes abundance? Not by working harder at your job, not by starting new businesses, not by buying lottery tickets or making investments or any external action whatsoever. You do it by asking yourself certain questions and answering them not with your mind, but with your feeling nature. First, how would I feel if money were never ever a concern in my life? Not how would you feel if you had money. That assumes you don't have it now. But how would you feel if money was simply never something you had to think about? Feel that peace. Feel that freedom. Feel that relief. Let it fill your entire being until it becomes natural to you. Second, how would I move through the world if wealth were my natural state? A wealthy man doesn't hurry to catch buses to save $2. A wealthy man doesn't calculate the tip to the penny. A wealthy man doesn't automatically buy the cheapest version of everything out of fear. Feel how you would walk. Feel the quiet confidence. Feel the natural generosity. Feel the assumption that you can afford whatever you truly desire. Third, and most importantly, what would I do with my time if money were no object? This is crucial, my friends, because wealthy people don't spend their mental energy thinking about money. They spend it on their passions, their interests, their contributions to the world. Feel yourself living from inspiration rather than from desperation. But here is the technique that will transform your life if you apply it faithfully. Tonight, when you retire to your bed, do not pray for money to come to you. Do not visualize money arriving from external sources. Do not think about specific amounts or methods. Simply feel yourself as someone who has always been financially free. Feel how natural it is for you to live without financial stress. Feel how boring money questions have become for you, because money simply flows in your life as naturally as breath flows in your body. This is not make-believe, my friends. This is assumption. An assumption, though false, if sustained, will harden into fact. Let me share with you one of the most remarkable demonstrations of this principle that I have ever witnessed. A man came to see me, I shall call him Robert, who was $50,000 in debt. This was in 1963, mind you. In today's currency, that would be several times more. He was facing bankruptcy, divorce, the loss of his home. He was, as they say, at the end of his rope. Mr. Goddard, he said to me, I need a miracle, I need money immediately, or I lose everything I have worked for. I said to him, what I am saying to you tonight, my friend, you don't need money. You need to stop being the man who is broke and start being the man who is wealthy. But I am broke, he protested. Look at my bank statements. Look at my debts. These are facts. No, I replied. These are your current assumptions hardened into facts. But assumptions can be changed. And when assumptions change, facts must follow. This is law. Robert was skeptical, but desperation made him willing to try anything. I gave him one simple instruction for 30 consecutive nights. As he prepared for sleep, he was to assume himself debt-free and abundantly supplied. Not becoming debt-free, being debt-free. Not getting wealthy, being wealthy. He was to feel the relief of having no financial pressure whatsoever. He was to feel the ease of paying every bill without calculation. He was to feel the joy of being able to help others financially. During his days, he continued to face his creditors, to deal with his apparent reality. But every night, in consciousness, he lived in a completely different world, a world where he was prosperous and free. For 27 days, nothing changed in his outer world. His creditors still called. The bills still arrived. The pressure mounted. But on the 28th day, he received a telephone call that changed everything. A business venture he had invested in 5 years prior. An investment so small and apparently insignificant that he had completely forgotten about it, had suddenly become extraordinarily valuable. His tiny stake had grown to over $200,000. Now here is what convinced me beyond all doubt that this was not coincidence, not luck, not fortunate timing. When Robert received that call, he was not surprised. Just like Sarah with her inheritance, he felt natural about it. He felt like it made perfect sense for a man like him, a prosperous man, to receive such news. Because in consciousness he had been wealthy for nearly a month. This brings me to the fundamental law that governs all human experience, a law I call the law of assumption. Whatever you assume to be true about yourself will be expressed in your world. Not sometimes, not if you're lucky, not if the conditions are right. Always, automatically, without exception. You think you are poor because your bank account is empty. I tell you your bank account is empty because you assume you are poor. The assumption comes first, always. The facts follow. But Mr. Goddard, you say, what about my circumstances? What about the economy? What about my lack of education, my poor family background, my current debts? Here is a truth that will either liberate you or disturb you completely. Your circumstances are not the cause of your financial condition. Your circumstances are the result of your assumptions about your financial condition. Every advantage that wealthy people seem to have, wealthy families, good educations, fortunate connections, these were attracted to them by their consciousness. Their assumptions created the very circumstances that appear to have created their success. You say, but they were born into wealth. I say to you, they chose to be born into wealthy families because their consciousness was already aligned with wealth. There are no accidents in an ordered universe. You say, but they had better opportunities. I tell you, opportunities are created by consciousness, not the reverse. The same opportunity presented to poverty consciousness will be missed or wasted. Presented to wealth consciousness, it will be recognized and maximized. Stop waiting for your circumstances to improve. Your circumstances are waiting for you to change. When you change your assumption about money, money must change its behavior toward you. Now let me give you a complete method, a daily practice that will revolutionize your relationship with money if you apply it consistently. Each morning, before you rise from your bed, before you check your telephone or think about your problems, spend 5 minutes feeling grateful for your abundant financial state. Not hoping for abundance, feeling it as present reality. Say inwardly, I am wealthy. Money flows to me naturally and easily. I am the kind of person who never worries about money. But do not merely say these words. Feel their truth. Throughout your day, whenever thoughts of money arise, when you pay a bill, when you see something you desire, when you check your bank balance, pause and ask yourself, how would a naturally wealthy person experience this moment? A wealthy person paying bills feels natural about it, not stressed. A wealthy person seeing something desirable doesn't feel longing. They simply decide whether they want it. A wealthy person checking their bank balance feels satisfaction, not anxiety. Each evening, and this is the most crucial practice of all, as you prepare for sleep, enter completely into the consciousness of wealth. Feel yourself living in financial freedom. But here is the key. Don't imagine dramatic changes happening overnight. Instead, imagine feeling completely natural about being wealthy. Imagine being comfortable with abundance. Imagine being the kind of person for whom wealth is normal, expected, as natural as breathing. Do this faithfully for 30 days. Not 29, not 31. 30 days exactly. And I promise you, not hope but promise, you will witness what the world calls miracles, but which are simply consciousness expressing itself. As we come to the close of this evening together, let me leave you with the most important truth of all. You are not trying to become wealthy, my friends. You are trying to remember that you already are wealthy. In the deepest sense, in the most fundamental reality, there is no such thing as a poor person anywhere in this universe. There are only infinitely abundant beings who have temporarily forgotten their true nature, who have assumed limitation, who have accepted the illusion of lack. Your natural state is abundance. Your birthright is prosperity. Your true identity is wealth itself, for consciousness, which is what you are, lacks nothing. The billionaire has not achieved something you lack. The billionaire has simply remembered something you have forgotten. As we come to the close of this evening together, let me leave you with the most important truth of all. You are not trying to become wealthy, my friends. You are trying to remember that you already are wealthy. In the deepest sense, in the most fundamental reality, there is no such thing as a poor person anywhere in this universe. There are only infinitely abundant beings who have temporarily forgotten their true nature, who have assumed limitation, who have accepted the illusion of lack. Your natural state is abundance. Your birthright is prosperity. Your true identity is wealth itself, for consciousness, which is what you are, lacks nothing. The billionaire has not achieved something you lack. The billionaire has simply remembered something you have forgotten. As we come to the close of this evening together, let me leave you with the most important truth of all. You are not trying to become wealthy, my friends. You are trying to remember that you already are wealthy. In the deepest sense, in the most fundamental reality, there is no such thing as a poor person anywhere in this universe. There are only infinitely abundant beings who have temporarily forgotten their true nature, who have assumed limitation, who have accepted the illusion of lack. Your natural state is abundance. Your birthright is prosperity. Your true identity is wealth itself, for consciousness, which is what you are, lacks nothing. The billionaire has not achieved something you lack. The billionaire has simply remembered something you have forgotten. My friends, the choice is yours alone. Will you continue to dream that you are limited? Or will you awaken to the truth of your limitless nature? Will you persist in assuming scarcity? Or will you claim your inheritance of abundance? The power has always been yours. The wealth has always been yours. The choice has always been yours. Remember, assumption, though false, if sustained, will harden into fact. Assume wisely, my friends. Assume boldly. Assume persistently. Your wealthy self is not someone you must become. It is someone you must remember you have always been. Good evening. My dear friends, as I stand before you this evening, I want you to consider something that will challenge the very foundation of how you understand relationships, separation, and individual identity. Look around this room. See all these faces, all these apparently separate beings, each with their own thoughts, their own problems, their own dreams. What if I told you that this appearance of separation is the greatest illusion ever perpetuated? What if I told you that there is only one consciousness in this room, appearing to be many? What if I told you that the person sitting next to you is not another person at all, but rather another aspect of the same infinite consciousness that you are? What if I told you that every face you see, every voice you hear, every mind you encounter is simply consciousness knowing itself through the mirror of apparent otherness? Tonight I want to share with you a truth so profound that once you truly understand it, you will never again feel alone, never again feel separate, never again feel that others are working against you. Tonight I want to reveal to you that you and I are one, not metaphorically, not symbolically, but literally and absolutely one consciousness appearing as two. The revelation I'm about to share came to me in the most unexpected way. A gentleman approached me after a lecture last month, visibly agitated and frustrated. He said, Neville, I've been practicing these teachings for years, but I can't seem to change how other people treat me. My wife still criticizes me, my boss still undermines me, my neighbors still annoy me. How can I manifest different people in my life? I looked at this troubled man and realized he was asking the wrong question entirely. I said, my friend, you cannot change other people because there are no other people. There is only one consciousness, your consciousness appearing to be many. Your wife's criticism is your own self-criticism made manifest. Your boss's undermining is your own self-doubt externalized. Your neighbor's annoying behavior is your own inner annoyance projected outward. He stared at me in confusion. But Neville, I can clearly see that these are separate people with their own minds and wills. How can you say they're all me? Because I replied, consciousness is one and indivisible. What appears as your consciousness and what appears as their consciousness is the same consciousness viewing itself from different angles. When you look in a mirror, you don't see another person, you see yourself. Everyone in your life is consciousness, showing you aspects of yourself through the mirror of apparent relationship. This man was skeptical, but he was desperate enough to try a radical experiment. I instructed him to spend 1 week treating every person in his life as if they were literally himself in disguise. When his wife criticized him, instead of defending himself, he asked, what aspect of myself is this criticism reflecting? When his boss undermined him, instead of feeling victimized, he examined what part of his own consciousness felt undermined. When his neighbors annoyed him, instead of blaming them, he looked for what within himself was feeling irritated. The results were extraordinary. Within days, the people around him began responding differently. His wife became more supportive, his boss more respectful, his neighbors more friendly. Had these people suddenly changed? No. His consciousness had shifted, and since they existed within his consciousness as reflections of his inner states, they had no choice but to reflect his new inner reality. You see, what we call other people are actually the characters in the dream of consciousness. When you change the dreamer, the dream characters must change accordingly. When you heal the projector, the images on the screen automatically transform. But this goes much deeper than simply changing how others treat you. This truth reveals the profound interconnectedness of all existence and your responsibility as the one consciousness appearing as many. Every person you meet is consciousness meeting itself. Every conversation you have is consciousness talking to itself. Every relationship you experience is consciousness exploring its own infinite nature through the drama of apparent separation and reunion. When you truly understand this, several remarkable things happen. First, you can never again feel truly alone, because you realize that every being you encounter is another face of your own eternal self. Second, you can never again feel victimized by others, because you understand that they are simply reflecting back to you your own inner states. Third, you can never again judge others harshly, because you realize that in judging them, you are judging yourself. Let me share with you a story that perfectly illustrates this principle. A woman came to see me who was consumed with hatred for her ex-husband. She said, Neville, this man destroyed my life. He was cruel, selfish, and abusive. I cannot forgive him, and I don't want to forgive him. He deserves my hatred. I said to her, my dear woman, the man you hate is yourself. The cruelty you see in him is the cruelty you fear within yourself. The selfishness you condemn in him is the selfishness you judge in yourself. The abuse you suffered from him is the abuse you inflict upon yourself through your own self-condemnation. She was outraged. How dare you suggest that I am like him? I am nothing like that monster. You're absolutely right, I replied. You are nothing like the limited version of consciousness that appeared as your ex-husband, but he was also nothing like that limited version. Both of you are infinite consciousness temporarily playing roles in the drama of human experience. The role he played was designed to show you aspects of yourself that needed healing. I explained to her that her ex-husband was not her enemy, but her teacher. He was consciousness disguised as an adversary to help her discover her own power, her own worth, her own capacity for love despite apparent lovelessness. But how can I forgive someone who hurt me so deeply? She asked. By realizing that there is no someone else to forgive, I replied. There is only consciousness forgiving itself for temporarily forgetting its true loving nature. When you forgive him, you are forgiving the aspect of yourself that believed it was separate, limited, and capable of being truly harmed. This woman began the difficult but transformative work of seeing her ex-husband not as an enemy, but as an unconscious expression of the same consciousness that she was. She began to understand that his hurtful actions came from his own inner pain and confusion, just as her hatred came from hers. As she shifted from seeing him as other to seeing him as self, something miraculous happened. The hatred began to dissolve, not because she was forcing herself to forgive, but because she was recognizing the impossibility of hating herself forever. The pain began to heal, not because she was denying what happened, but because she was understanding its deeper purpose in the evolution of consciousness. Most remarkably, her ex-husband began to change. He started reaching out to apologize for his past behavior. He began making amends for the pain he had caused. He even started attending therapy to address his own issues. Had she changed him through some mystical power? No. She had changed her consciousness of him, and since he existed within her consciousness as a reflection of her inner state, he naturally began to reflect her new understanding. This is the great secret of human relationships. Everyone in your life is you. Pushed out. Your spouse is you in the role of partner. Your children are you in the role of offspring. Your parents are you in the role of authority. Your friends are you in the role of companion. Your enemies are you in the role of adversary. Each person represents an aspect of your own consciousness that you are either embracing or rejecting, loving or fearing, accepting or denying. When you heal your relationship with any aspect of yourself, the outer person who represents that aspect must change to reflect your new inner relationship. But this understanding also reveals your profound responsibility. If everyone in your life is you, then every act of love or hatred you express toward another is an act of love or hatred toward yourself. Every word of encouragement or discouragement you speak to another is a word you speak to yourself. Every thought of appreciation or criticism you have about another is a thought you have about yourself. This is why Jesus taught, love your neighbor as yourself. Not because your neighbor is like yourself, but because your neighbor is yourself, appearing in a different form. When you love another, you literally love yourself. When you hate another, you literally hate yourself. Let me tell you about a man who discovered this truth in the most profound way possible. He came to me consumed with envy and resentment toward a colleague who had achieved the success he desperately wanted. This colleague had the career, the recognition, the income that he felt should have been his. Neville, he said, I hate watching this man succeed while I struggle. It's not fair. He doesn't deserve what he has. I work just as hard, I'm just as talented, but he gets all the breaks while I get nothing. I said to him, this man is not your competitor. He is your teacher. He is not your enemy. He is your mirror. He is showing you your own potential for success by demonstrating it in physical form. Instead of resenting him, you should thank him for showing you what's possible for yourself. But how can I be grateful to someone who has what I want? He asked. By recognizing that he is you, the successful version of you. I replied. Consciousness is showing you your own capabilities through his achievements. Instead of feeling separate from his success, claim it as evidence of your own potential. Instead of competing with him, learn from him. Instead of envying him, become him. This was a radical shift in perspective for this man. Instead of seeing his colleague as other, he began to see him as self, specifically as the version of himself that had already achieved success. Instead of feeling competitive, he began to feel curious about how this version of himself had managed to manifest such achievement. He started studying his colleagues' habits, attitudes, and approaches. Not to copy them, but to understand how consciousness creates success through individual expression. He began to see his colleagues' achievements not as evidence that success was being withheld from him, but as proof that success was possible for him. As he made this shift from separation to identification, something remarkable happened. Instead of being competitors, they became collaborators. His colleague began mentoring him, sharing opportunities with him, even recommending him for positions. The success that had seemed to belong exclusively to another began to manifest in his own experience. This is the power of recognizing oneness. What appears to belong to another is actually yours when you stop seeing another and start seeing self. But perhaps the most profound application of this truth is in intimate relationships. When you understand that your romantic partner is literally yourself in disguise, the entire dynamic of relationship transforms. Most people approach relationships from a position of need and lack. They look to their partner to complete them, to give them what they feel they're missing, to love them in ways they don't love themselves. But when you realize that your partner is you, you understand that any lack you feel they're not filling is actually a lack you're not filling within yourself. A couple came to see me whose marriage was on the verge of divorce. The wife complained, "He never listens to me, never appreciates me, never shows me affection." The husband complained, "She's always criticizing me, always demanding more from me, never satisfied with anything I do." I said to them, "You are both describing yourselves to yourselves. You, madam, are experiencing your own inner dialogue of feeling unheard and unappreciated. And you, sir, are experiencing your own inner critic that is never satisfied with your efforts." They looked at me in confusion. So I continued, "Your spouse is your own consciousness reflected back to you. The way they treat you is the way you treat yourself. The love they show you is the love you show yourself. The criticism they express is the criticism you express toward yourself." I gave them an assignment that completely transformed their relationship. For 1 month, they were to focus not on changing their spouse, but on changing their relationship with themselves. The wife was to practice listening to herself, appreciating herself, and showing herself affection. The husband was to practice stopping his inner critic, accepting himself, and acknowledging his own efforts. The results were miraculous. As the wife began to truly listen to her own inner voice and appreciate her own worth, her husband naturally began to listen to her more and show her greater appreciation. As the husband began to silence his inner critic and accept himself, his wife naturally became less critical and more accepting of him. They had discovered the great secret of relationships. You cannot get from another what you don't give to yourself, because the other is yourself. This truth extends beyond personal relationships to your relationship with all of humanity. When you understand that you and everyone else are one consciousness appearing as many, you realize that the healing of the world begins with the healing of your own consciousness. Every act of love you perform for another is an act of love performed for yourself. Every contribution you make to another's well-being is a contribution to your own well-being. Every blessing you extend to another is a blessing you extend to yourself. But equally, every act of harm you commit against another is an act of harm against yourself. Every judgment you make about another is a judgment about yourself. Every limitation you place on another is a limitation you place on yourself. This is why the Golden Rule is not just a moral guideline. It's a statement of metaphysical fact. You should treat others as you would want to be treated, because others are you, experiencing themselves through different individual expressions. When you truly embody this understanding, your entire experience of life transforms. You stop feeling like a separate individual struggling against a hostile world, and start feeling like consciousness itself, exploring its own infinite nature through countless individual expressions. You stop trying to get love from others and start being the love that you are. You stop seeking approval from others and start giving yourself the approval you seek. You stop waiting for others to change and start being the change you want to see. But most importantly, you stop feeling alone. How can you feel alone when everyone you meet is another face of your own eternal self? How can you feel unloved when every being you encounter is love itself in disguise? How can you feel separate when separation is literally impossible in a universe where consciousness is one and indivisible? So tonight I want you to begin a great experiment. For the next week, treat every person you encounter as if they were literally yourself in disguise. When someone is kind to you, receive it as yourself being kind to yourself. When someone is difficult with you, see it as an aspect of yourself that needs healing. When someone succeeds, celebrate it as your own success. When someone struggles, extend to them the compassion you would want for yourself. Watch what happens when you stop believing in other people and start recognizing other selves. Watch how your relationships transform when you shift from separation to identification. Watch how your experience of love expands when you realize that every being you love is literally yourself loving yourself. You and I are one. You and everyone are one. There is only one consciousness in this universe, and you are it, I am it, everyone is it. We are all waves in the same ocean, rays from the same sun, thoughts in the same infinite mind. The search for love ends when you realize that everyone is love itself appearing in individual form. The fear of abandonment dissolves when you understand that you can never be separate from your own eternal self. The experience of loneliness becomes impossible when you recognize that solitude is simply consciousness enjoying its own perfect company. You and I are one. Not as a beautiful ideal, but as an absolute reality. Not as something to achieve, but as something to recognize. Not as a future possibility, but as an eternal fact that has always been true and always will be true. The only question is, will you continue to play the game of separation, or will you awaken to the truth of your eternal oneness with all that is? You and I are one. Not as a beautiful ideal, but as an absolute reality. Not as something to achieve, but as something to recognize. Not as a future possibility, but as an eternal fact that has always been true and always will be true. The only question is, will you continue to play the game of separation, or will you awaken to the truth of your eternal oneness with all that is? This is Best of Lectures. As always, thank you for joining me. Remember, you are not here by accident. You are here because your soul is ready for this truth. Take these teachings and let them transform not just your mind, but your entire reality. Until we meet again in consciousness, keep assuming your greatness and living from the end of your desires. Good evening, my friends. What if I told you that the CIA, the Central Intelligence Agency, spent years and millions of dollars researching a technique that proves your imagination is not wishful thinking, but a direct pathway to altering reality? What if I told you that buried in declassified government documents, there exists scientific validation for everything the law of assumption teaching us about imagination and the power of consciousness? And what if I told you that these documents, available for anyone to read, describe the exact same principles that Neville Goddard taught decades ago, but in the cold clinical language of government science? This is not theory. This is not philosophy. This is documented, declassified, government-verified research into the mechanics of consciousness and reality creation. Tonight you're going to discover why the CIA believed, no, why they proved, that consciousness is not confined to your brain, that reality is not what your senses report, and that you have the ability to access and alter the fundamental fabric of existence through focused attention and imagination. They called it the Gateway Project, and it validates everything Neville Goddard ever taught. In 1983, the CIA commissioned a report, not about weapons, about consciousness. They wanted to know, can human consciousness operate outside the physical body? Can focused attention alter reality? Can imagination access information beyond the five senses? For years, this research remained classified. Top secret, eyes only. But in 2003, it was declassified, released to the public, and most people never noticed. Because who would believe that the CIA was seriously researching out-of-body experiences, altered states of consciousness, and the nature of reality itself? But they were. And what they found will change how you understand manifestation forever. The project was called Gateway, and its purpose was to explore and document a specific technique using something called hemi-sync, binaural audio frequencies that synchronize both hemispheres of the brain, to achieve what they called expanded states of consciousness. Let me walk you through what the CIA discovered. The Gateway Project documented a specific progression of consciousness states, each one representing a different level of awareness and reality access. They called these levels focus states. Focus 10 was described as mind awake, body asleep, a state where your consciousness is fully alert, but your physical body is completely relaxed, almost dissociated. In this state, participants reported heightened awareness, expanded perception, and a sense of consciousness existing independent of the physical form. Sound familiar? This is exactly what Neville described when he taught SATS, state akin to sleep. That drowsy state where your body is relaxed but your mind is vividly aware, capable of impressing the subconscious with imaginal acts. The CIA was documenting the same state Neville had been teaching since the 1940s. Focus 12 was described as expanded awareness, a state where consciousness begins to perceive beyond the limitations of physical senses. In this state, participants reported accessing information they couldn't have known through normal means, seeing events at a distance, perceiving probable futures, experiencing realities that hadn't yet manifested physically. Again, this is precisely what Neville meant when he said imagination is not fantasy, but perception of realities that exist in consciousness before they appear in the physical world. The CIA's Focus 12 is Neville's imaginal realm, the place where your desire already exists, waiting to be assumed into your experience. But here's where it gets even more profound. The Gateway documents describe reality not as solid matter, but as an energy matrix, a field of potentials, frequencies, and information. They explain that what we perceive as physical reality is actually consciousness organizing energy into patterns based on observation and attention. Let me read you an actual quote from the declassified document. The universe is composed of interacting energy fields, some at rest and some in motion. It is in and of itself one gigantic hologram of unbelievable complexity. Do you understand what they're saying? Reality is not fixed, it's not solid, it's not happening to you. Reality is a holographic projection of consciousness, a field of infinite possibilities that collapses into specific experiences based on where attention is focused. This is exactly what Neville taught when he said consciousness is the only reality. The CIA documented it, they studied it, they proved it through repeatable experimentation. Your consciousness doesn't observe reality. Your consciousness creates reality by focusing attention on specific possibilities within the infinite field. And here's the key. The Gateway documents explain that this energy matrix, this field of all possibilities, responds to sustained, focused attention combined with emotional resonance. Not thinking about what you want, not hoping for it, but experiencing it in consciousness with such vividness and feeling that you convince your own awareness it's already real. This is assumption, this is imagination. This is exactly what Neville taught, and the CIA confirmed it works. Now let me show you something that will make the connection undeniable. The Gateway technique used hemisync audio, specific sound frequencies played in each ear, that forced the brain hemispheres to synchronize. Why? Because synchronized brain waves create a state of heightened suggestibility, where the conscious mind relaxes its critical filter and the subconscious becomes highly receptive to new information. In this state, imaginal acts bypass logical resistance and impress directly on the subconscious mind, which then begins reorganizing reality to match the impressed image. Now, does this sound familiar? This is precisely why Neville taught you to practice SATS in the drowsy state before sleep. Because in that state, just like the hemisync state, your conscious mind relaxes, your brain waves slow, and your subconscious becomes incredibly receptive. The imaginal act you perform in that state bypasses all doubt, all resistance, all logical objection. It impresses directly on the creative level of mind. The CIA used technology to achieve what Neville taught you to achieve naturally, accessing the gateway state where consciousness can impress new patterns on the energy matrix of reality. Different methods, same gateway, same results. But the Gateway project went even further. They documented something called Focus 15, described as no time, a state where consciousness exists outside linear time, able to access past and future simultaneously. In this state, participants reported experiencing desired outcomes as if they had already happened, not imagining them as future possibilities, but remembering them as completed events. Do you see it? This is living from the end. This is Neville's core teaching. You don't imagine your desire as something coming in the future. You experience it in consciousness as already done, as a memory of something that has already occurred. And when you do this, when you occupy the state of the wish fulfilled so completely that it feels like a memory rather than a hope, you've collapsed the timeline. You've accessed focus 15. You've moved outside linear time. You've selected the reality where your desire is already manifested and brought your awareness to that timeline. The CIA documented this. They proved participants could access information from timelines where events had already occurred differently than the current physical timeline. They proved that consciousness exists beyond time, that all possibilities exist simultaneously, and that focused attention determines which possibility you experience as your reality. This is quantum physics meeting ancient mysticism. This is science validating spirit. And it's exactly what Neville taught. Now let me connect another crucial piece. The Gateway documents explicitly state that consciousness is not produced by the brain. It's not confined to the physical body. It's not limited to the material world. They describe consciousness as existing in a non-physical energy matrix, a realm beyond the physical senses, where all information, all possibilities, all potentials exist simultaneously. And here's the critical part. They explain that this non-physical realm is more fundamental than physical reality. It's the source, the cause, the creative level. Physical reality is the effect, the projection, the manifestation of what exists first in the non-physical realm. Neville called this the imaginal world, the realm of consciousness where your desire already exists in perfect, complete form. The CIA called it the non-physical energy matrix. Different names, same reality. And both frameworks agree on this crucial principle. What you experience in this non-physical realm, what you assume, what you embody, what you feel is real in consciousness, must eventually manifest in physical form. Because the non-physical is cause, the physical is effect. Consciousness is primary. Matter is secondary. This isn't spiritual philosophy anymore. This is documented government research. Now let me show you how the Gateway findings explain why assumption works. The documents describe reality as a holographic interference pattern, different frequencies of energy creating different experiential realities. Your current circumstances are one frequency. Your desired reality is a different frequency. Both exist simultaneously in the energy matrix. You're simply tuned to one frequency and not the other. Now here's what the Gateway research proved. You can change which frequency you're tuned to through sustained focused attention combined with emotional resonance. When you assume your desire fulfilled, when you maintain that assumption consistently, when you feel it as real, when you think from it rather than about it, you're literally changing your consciousness frequency. You're tuning yourself to the frequency where your desire already exists. And as you maintain that frequency, as you persist in that assumption, your physical reality begins to reorganize. Not because you're creating something new, but because you're aligning with a reality that already exists at a different frequency. This is why Neville said, assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled and continue in that assumption. Not because you're trying to convince the universe to give you something, but because you're changing your frequency to match the reality where you already have it. The CIA documented this exact mechanism. They just used words like resonance, frequency, and energy matrix, instead of assumption and imagination. Let me make this absolutely clear. Everything Neville Goddard taught, everything that skeptics dismissed as mystical nonsense or wishful thinking, has been validated by declassified CIA research. Neville taught, consciousness is the only reality. CIA documented, physical reality is a projection of consciousness operating in an energy matrix. Neville taught, imagination creates reality. CIA proved, focused consciousness can access and influence the fundamental energy patterns that determine physical manifestation. Neville taught, the feeling of the wish fulfilled is the secret. CIA confirmed, emotional resonance combined with focused attention is the key to altering reality frequencies. Neville taught, all states exist now. You simply choose which one to occupy. CIA discovered, all possible timelines exist simultaneously in the energy matrix. Consciousness determines which one you experience. Neville taught, the imaginal act impressed on the subconscious becomes your reality. CIA researched, consciousness in heightened receptive states can impress new patterns on the energy matrix that then manifest physically. The parallels are not coincidental, they're confirmational. What Neville knew through spiritual insight, the CIA proved through scientific investigation. Your imagination is not fantasy, It's a gateway to actual existing realities. Your assumption is not positive thinking, it's frequency alignment with desired timelines. Your feeling of the wish fulfilled is not pretending. It's consciousness resonating at the frequency where the desire already exists. So how do you use this? How do you become your own gateway project? Let me give you the exact protocol combining CIA methodology with Neville's teachings. Step 1. Enter the gateway state. Before sleep every night, enter the state akin to sleep. Your body completely relaxed. Your mind alert but drowsy. This is your personal hemi-sync. This is focus 10. This is the gateway state where your subconscious becomes receptive. You don't need technology. You don't need CIA equipment. You just need the natural state Neville taught you to access. Step 2. Construct your imaginal act. In this state, construct one simple scene that implies your desire is fulfilled. Not a scene of getting your desire. A scene that assumes you already have it. Make it vivid. Engage all your senses. Make it feel so real that you forget you're imagining. This is your focused consciousness entering the non-physical energy matrix. This is you accessing the frequency where your desire exists. Step 3. Loop and impress. Repeat this scene over and over as you drift into sleep. Don't think about it. Experience it. Be in it. You're impressing this reality on your subconscious. You're training your consciousness to resonate at this frequency. You're doing what the gateway participants did, accessing alternate realities through focused consciousness. But you're doing it naturally, powerfully, exactly as Neville taught. Step 4. Maintain the assumption throughout the day. This is crucial. The gateway isn't just a nighttime practice. Throughout your waking hours, you maintain the assumption that your desire is already fulfilled. You think from it, you speak from it. You make decisions from it. This is sustained frequency alignment. This is living from the end. This is consciousness choosing which reality to experience. Every time you drift back to your old assumption, your old frequency, you gently redirect back to your desired state. You're training your consciousness to naturally resonate at the frequency of your desire fulfilled. Step 5. Ignore contradictory evidence. The gateway documents explain something crucial. There's a time lag between consciousness shift and physical manifestation. When you change frequencies in consciousness, the physical reality takes time to reorganize and reflect the new frequency. During this time, you'll still see evidence of the old frequency, the old circumstances, the old reality. This is where most people fail. They see the unchanged circumstances and conclude it's not working, so they shift back to the old frequency. But Neville taught, and the CIA confirmed, that you must maintain the new frequency regardless of current physical evidence. The physical is always showing you your past frequency, your past assumptions, your past state. But as you persist in the new frequency, as you maintain your assumption despite appearances, the physical must eventually shift to match. For those of you who needed scientific proof, for those who struggled with faith, for those who wanted evidence that this isn't just spiritual fantasy, here it is. The CIA, the most secretive, most skeptical, most evidence-demanding organization in the world, spent years and millions of dollars researching consciousness. And they concluded, consciousness can access and influence reality beyond the physical senses. Focused attention combined with emotional resonance can alter the fundamental energy patterns that determine physical experience. They proved it, they documented it, they declassified it. Everything Neville taught is not just spiritual wisdom. It's verifiable, documented, scientifically observed reality mechanics. Your imagination is not wishful thinking. It's accessing the energy matrix. Your assumption is not pretending. It's frequency selection. Your feeling of the wish fulfilled is not fantasy. It's resonance with existing realities. The government proved it. Neville taught it. Now it's time for you to experience it. Tonight you have a choice. You can continue thinking of manifestation as some mystical, unreliable practice that sometimes works for lucky people. Or you can recognize that what you've been learning is documented, researched, government-verified science about how consciousness and reality actually operate. The gateway is real. The non-physical energy matrix is real. The ability to access alternate timelines through focused consciousness is real. And you have access to this gateway every single night through the state akin to sleep. You don't need CIA clearance. You don't need special technology. You don't need permission. You just need to do what Neville taught. Enter the state, Construct the scene, feel it real, maintain the assumption, persist until it hardens into fact. The CIA proved it works. Neville taught you how to do it. The only question is, will you actually apply it? My friends, the greatest secret has been hiding in plain sight. Not in mystical teachings that require faith, not in spiritual philosophies that demand belief, in declassified government documents, in scientific research, in repeatable documented experiments. Consciousness is the only reality. Imagination creates your experience. Assumption determines which timeline you live in. This is not belief. This is not hope. This is not faith. This is documented fact. So tonight, when you enter the state akin to sleep, know that you're not engaging in wishful thinking. You're accessing the gateway. You're entering the energy matrix. You're aligning with frequencies where your desire already exists. You're doing what the CIA proved was possible. What Neville taught was natural. What you were born to do. You are consciousness. You are the creator. You are the gateway itself. Use it. Thank you and good evening. This is Best of Lectures. I will see you in the next video.
My dear friends, stop what you're doing for just a moment. Take a breath and look around you. What you're experiencing right now, this moment, this room, this life, it's just one timeline among infinite possibilities. And I'm about to show you how to step into a completely different one. Right now, as you're listening these words, infinite versions of reality are vibrating just beyond your perception. They're so close you could almost reach out and touch them, waiting for you to collapse them into experience. Yet here we are, so many of us locked inside our single loops, living the same patterns, getting the same results, feeling the same frustrations, wondering why nothing ever changes, even though we desperately want more. Let me shatter something for you. You're not stuck because of fate, destiny, or bad luck. I've been there too. We're stuck because our systems, our minds, bodies, emotions, our very frequencies, are still tuned to our old timelines. You and I both know you can't break free by just wishing for it. You can't escape by forcing it, and we certainly can't trick the quantum field by pretending. This transformation we're seeking isn't about manifesting harder. It's about you and me stepping into new states of being, so completely, so coherently, that the quantum field has no choice but to mirror back different realities to each of us. I used to think, and maybe you did too, that manifestation was all about desire. Want something badly enough, and the universe will deliver it. But can I share with you the truth that changed everything for me? Your desire alone does nothing in the quantum field. The field doesn't care how badly you and I want change. It only responds to how aligned we are with the frequency of that change. This means that right now, even if you're doing everything right, saying all the affirmations, creating beautiful vision boards, doing your visualizations, you might still be signaling the old timeline. I know because I've been there. Why does this happen to us? Because beneath our conscious efforts, our bodies are wired for the familiar. Our nervous systems are addicted to those old emotional loops. Our subconscious minds are still broadcasting patterns of fear, doubt, and scarcity, even while we're consciously shouting, I want abundance, I want love, I want success. Here's what hit me like lightning, and I want it to hit you too. The quantum field listens to our dominant signal, not our loudest one. Take a breath and let that land in your heart. Your dominant signal comes from your full system vibration. Not just what you think, but what you feel, what you expect, what you embody in every moment. That's why you can say, I am wealthy 1,000 times. But if your body contracts with anxiety every time you pay a bill, the field picks up your contraction, not your affirmation. I've seen it in my own life. You can visualize love all day long, but if your heart remains armored and closed from past hurts, the field registers your isolation, not your desire for connection. This is the trap that's kept me spinning for years. And maybe you too. We believe change starts outside us, with our circumstances, with our actions, with our results. But I've learned that quantum shift begins inside, with our state, with our coherence, with our alignment. You and I must become the versions of ourselves that already inhabit our desired timelines. Not someday, not when the evidence arrives, but right now. Let me share something that blew my mind when I understood it. Quantum physics shows us that all possibilities exist simultaneously in the field of potential. Every timeline, every version of you and me, every outcome we could imagine, they're all already vibrating in the quantum field. When we shift our vibration, we're not creating something from nothing. We're collapsing into the versions that have been waiting for us all along. I'm fascinated by how visionaries and inventors throughout history seem to understand this intuitively. Remember when Nikola Tesla said, "If you only knew the magnificence of 3, 6, and 9, you would have the key to the universe." These aren't just magical tricks. They point to universal patterns, harmonics, and the profound truth that our reality organizes itself around vibration. So I had to ask myself, and now I'm asking you, the question isn't, how do I get what I want? The real question is, who do I need to become vibrationally to align with the timeline where what I desire already exists? And becoming isn't pretending. It's not faking it till you make it. It's not performing. Becoming is a full body, full soul shift into coherence that you and I can feel in every cell. This is where our quantum shift begins. You're not here to fight your old timeline. You're here with me to rise into the frequency of your new one. Now let's talk about the real reason people don't shift. It's not because they're lazy. It's not because they don't want change badly enough. And it's definitely not because they're doing manifestation wrong. It's because they're still entangled with the version of themselves that's wired to survive the old timeline. That version, while outdated, is familiar, and the subconscious mind loves the familiar more than it loves progress. The old timeline doesn't need your permission to keep playing. It just needs your participation. Every time you react the same way, tell the same story, expect the same outcome, the signal gets reinforced. It's like a well-worn neural pathway in the brain. The more you walk it, the deeper it gets. Soon that path becomes automatic. You're not choosing your timeline anymore. It's choosing you. And here's where quantum physics and neuroscience intersect in a way most overlook. In quantum mechanics, the observer effect tells us that the act of observation collapses a wave of infinite potential into a single event, a particle, a choice, a reality. But here's the twist. You're not just observing reality with your eyes. You're observing it with your beliefs, your emotions, your expectations. Now add this neuroscience insight. 95% of your behavior is driven by the subconscious mind, which stores all your emotional conditioning, trauma, beliefs, and identity patterns. This means most of the time, it's not your conscious intention collapsing the wave. It's your subconscious programming. Let that land. You're trying to manifest from the 5% of you that's awake and aware, while the 95% of you is still tuned to fear, lack, distrust, and survival. And the quantum responds to the dominant signal. So when people say manifestation doesn't work, what they really mean is, I haven't yet shifted the internal observer that's collapsing my reality. This is why people loop. This is why you can change your job, your partner, your city, and still find yourself in the same emotional patterns. Because nothing external has the power to override an internal frequency that hasn't been changed. What's anchoring you in the old timeline? Usually it's resistance. And resistance is sneaky. It shows up as overthinking, as procrastination, as emotional numbness, as hyperproductivity, as fear disguised as logic, as the voice that says be realistic. But resistance always boils down to one thing. Your system believes it's safer to stay where you are, even if you hate it, than to leap into the unknown. And that belief lives in the body, stored trauma, emotional suppression, inherited fears, all coded into your nervous system. That's why you can know something intellectually, but still not be able to live it. That's why affirmations fall flat, why visualizations fade, why you keep falling back into the same old cycles. The resistance isn't in your mindset, it's in your chemistry. When your nervous system is dysregulated, it sends a signal of threat to the field. even when your mouth is saying, I'm ready. That energetic contradiction keeps collapsing the same limited outcomes. It's not personal, it's physics. Tesla once said, if you want to understand the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. This wasn't metaphorical. It was literal. Your life is a frequency. Your thoughts, emotions, posture, breath, they all create a vibrational pattern that either aligns with your desired timeline or repels it. You are not just a person navigating a life. You are a frequency generator embedded in a responsive field. And you've been broadcasting the same old pattern for so long. You've mistaken it for who you are. But here's the liberating truth. You don't have to fight that pattern. You just have to stop feeding it. Shifting timelines isn't about forcing the quantum field to obey you. It's about aligning so completely with the version of you who already lives the reality you desire, that the old timeline can no longer hold you. Think of the quantum field like a vast ocean of possibility. Every timeline, every version of you, every outcome already exists in that ocean as a wave. When you focus, when you observe, when you align, you collapse a particular wave into form. But here's the key. You don't collapse the wave by wanting it. You collapse it by matching it. And matching isn't just mental. It's emotional, physical, vibrational. It's how your entire system hums when you're in coherence. So why do people struggle to match the new timeline? Because they're trying to get there by thinking about it. They intellectualize the shift. I know abundance is available. I know love is possible. I know I can heal. But knowing isn't enough. Your body needs to know. Your emotions need to know. Your breath, your posture, your habits, your identity. They all need to signal, I am now the version of me who belongs in this timeline. This is where embodiment comes in. Embodiment is not a buzzword. It's the missing link. It's the practice of inhabiting the frequency you want before the external world gives you permission. If you're shifting into an abundance timeline, embodiment might mean spending money with trust instead of panic, breathing into your body when the fear of not enough rises, showing up to opportunities with openness instead of bracing for disappointment. If you're shifting into a love timeline, embodiment might mean softening your heart when you want to shut down, taking emotional risks, practicing vulnerability even when old wounds tell you to hide. You don't wait for the timeline to shift to start living differently. You start living differently, and the timeline shifts. This is why so many manifestation efforts fail. They're conditional. I'll feel grateful when I get the job. I'll relax when I find the relationship. I'll feel abundant when the money arrives. But the quantum doesn't work that way. The field isn't testing you or punishing you. It's reflecting you. And reflection happens instantaneously, not after a delay. The real work becomes, can you become coherent? Can you bring your mind, heart, body, and actions into alignment, even when nothing external has changed yet? Can you hold the signal long enough for the wave to collapse? Because here's the paradox. No one talks about. The timeline doesn't shift when you get tired of waiting. The timeline shifts when waiting is no longer part of your frequency. The only practice that matters is the one you actually live. We live in an age where it's easy to consume knowledge, gather techniques, watch videos, and yet never integrate. Why? Because consuming feels like progress. But progress only happens when the body, the breath, the actions begin to match the information. So here's how we bring the quantum shift into daily life. First, understand the principle of micro-alignment. Most people think shifting timelines requires massive, dramatic changes, but quantum reality responds to coherence, not size. A small act done with pure, aligned intention can carry more vibrational weight than a giant, frantic gesture done from desperation. If you're shifting toward abundance, your practice might be breathing deeply when scarcity thoughts arise, expressing gratitude for small resources, spending money with presence and trust rather than panic. If you're shifting toward love, your practice might be opening your posture when you want to shrink, speaking words of affection even when vulnerability feels uncomfortable, These small acts are quantum keys. They tell the field, this is who I am now, not who I'm trying to become someday, but who I've decided to be today. But here's the part most people miss. The practice is not about perfection. It's about returning. You will wobble. You will fall back into old loops. You will catch yourself thinking, feeling, or acting from the old timeline. This doesn't mean you failed. It means you're alive. The power isn't in never slipping. The power is in how quickly you come back. Every time you notice yourself slipping into the old frequency and gently guide yourself back, you strengthen the new timeline. Every time you pause, breathe, and choose coherence over chaos, you reinforce the shift. Every time you act as though the new reality is already true, even when the external world hasn't caught up yet, you collapse the wave. This is the dance of quantum embodiment. I've learned this the hard way, and I want to save you the trouble. The quantum field doesn't care if we visit our new timeline once. It only reshapes around us when we live there. I used to approach manifestation like a single event. Maybe you have too. We visualize, we affirm, we journal, we wait. And when results don't show up immediately, we collapse back into our old frequency. I didn't realize for the longest time that the true magic, the true transformation, happens in the staying. Sustainability is the master key of our quantum shift. Let me be real with you. This doesn't mean forcing yourself to feel good all the time. It doesn't mean ignoring challenges or pretending you're high vibe when you're going through hell. It means you and I developing the emotional and energetic capacity to return again and again to alignment. Every time you wobble and come back, you strengthen your signal. Every time you notice an old loop pulling at you and gently choose your new timeline instead, you reinforce your shift. Every time you act, speak, breathe, and choose as though you already live in your desired state, your old timeline loses its grip on you. This isn't punishment. This is mastery. You're learning how to become the quantum signal that collapses the wave, not occasionally, not when it's convenient, but as your way of life. Let me share the roadmap that changed everything for me. Number 1, daily awareness. I start my day not with my to-do list, but with a tuning. Ask yourself like I do. What frequency am I bringing into today? Are we carrying fear or trust? Are we expecting struggle or flow? Set your intention before your feet even hit the ground. Number 2, embodied action. Throughout your day, practice micro-alignment. Notice when your actions match your desired timeline and when they don't. If we want abundance, are we acting with generosity or scarcity? If we want love, are we opening or armoring? I found that small, repeated shifts matter far more than occasional big leaps. Number 4, emotional regulation. You and I will get triggered. We will fall into doubt. We're human. The power lies not in avoiding it, but in our return. Breathe. Ground yourself. Reconnect with the version of you who already knows. This is who I am now. Number 5, gratitude. This has transformed my life. When we practice genuine gratitude, we signal to the quantum, I am aligned. I am receptive. I am whole. This amplifies the coherence of our field and accelerates the collapse of our desired timeline. Remember, you're not doing this to get somewhere. You're doing this because this is the somewhere you are. You're not chasing your timeline. You are becoming it. Let me tell you something. You are not the same person who began listening these words. You are vibrating slightly differently. You are carrying new awareness, a new code, a new possibility inside you. The real magic isn't in remembering everything we've discussed. The real magic is in what you do next. So here's my invitation. Not a homework assignment. Not a checklist. Just a living, breathing invitation. In the next 24 hours, surprise yourself. Do one thing, just one, that belongs to the version of you living in your desired timeline. Maybe it's a choice, a gesture, a conversation, or even a private shift inside your mind or heart. It doesn't need to be big. It just needs to be real. And when you do it, know this, you are no longer waiting for change. You are being it. Your journey to mastery begins now. Not when you're ready, not when circumstances align, not when you have more information or feel more confident. Now, because the extraordinary version of you, The one living in that vibrant, expansive timeline is already here, already whole, already complete. And the quantum field is listening. What if I told you that everything you've been taught about success, about earning your place in this world, has been a lie designed to keep you small? You were never meant to be normal. You were never meant to crawl through life, asking for crumbs from a world that was designed to echo your voice. You were never meant to dim the light of your assumption, just to comfort those who cannot remember their own. There is something in you, something ancient, something royal, that has grown tired of shrinking, tired of waiting, tired of begging for what was already yours in the beginning. That tiredness is not weakness. It is the birth cry of your true identity. It is the I am stirring in the tomb of self-forgetting, whispering, arise and walk in your dominion. Here's what they don't want you to know. To act like you were meant to win is not arrogance. It is accuracy. It is alignment with the truth you buried beneath years of performance, trauma, and spiritual begging. You thought life was about becoming, but I tell you now, it is about remembering. Remembering that you were sent here to speak from the mountaintop, not to weep in the valley. You were meant to command with stillness, not perform with panic. The identity of the victor is not earned. It is assumed. But who taught you to lose? Who taught you that humility meant hesitation? Who taught you that asking for permission was noble, that deferring your power was spiritual? These are lies, systems of delay you were never meant to carry. You were not born to manifest from want, but to decree from fullness. And the world that now feels against you is not your enemy. It is your echo. It reflects only the tone you speak when no one else is listening. So let us be clear. You do not attract what you want. You attract what you are. And what you are is not what you say in moments of inspiration, but what you assume in the stillness. If you believe you were made to win, the world cannot help but organize around that belief. But if you carry the tone of the one trying to win, hoping to win, needing to win, the victory will remain a stranger to your house, because you are not inviting it. You are postponing it. There is a great reversal at the heart of spiritual law. You do not win and then feel like a winner. You feel like a winner and then the outer bows in recognition. This is the only law you cannot bypass. You cannot cheat it with effort, with noise, with desperation. The feeling is the secret, and the feeling of the one who was meant to win is quiet, complete, unshaken by delay or denial. That feeling is your only task. That state is your only responsibility. From it, all things flow. So today I speak to the one who remembers, the one beneath your name, the one behind your face, the one who has always known there was more. I do not ask you to try harder. I ask you to rise. Rise into the assumption of your divine inheritance. Rise into the knowing that no one can give you what you have not already received within. Rise into the state of the man who does not wait for evidence. He is the evidence. Act like you were meant to win, because you were, because you are, because you cannot lose unless you continue to argue for the mask you were never born to wear. You've betrayed yourself more times than you care to count. Not through violence, not through vice, but through vibration, through the subtle posture of defeat you carry in the silence. You say you believe, but your tone reveals an orphan soul still waiting for permission to rise. You say I am with your lips, and yet your breath holds the tension of one who doubts his own authority. You walk into rooms with your head bowed low, asking the world to reflect what only you were meant to command. And when it does not, you call it rejection. But it is not rejection. It is feedback. The law is always listening. You prayed like a beggar while being the author. You whispered affirmations while rehearsing doubt. You hoped life would choose you while refusing to act like you'd already been chosen. That is not spiritual discipline. It is spiritual delay. You call it humility, but it is hesitation. You call it caution, but it is contradiction. You have clothed yourself in the garments of the loser while claiming to know the law, and that split has cost you everything. You look at your past and call it truth. You look at your failures and call them prophecies. But I tell you, the only thing they ever revealed was the state you dwelled in at the time. They do not speak of who you are. They speak only of who you were being. And who you were being was a man rehearsing loss, expecting delay, negotiating with heaven as if you were its servant instead of its image. The problem is not the world. The problem is that you've mistaken memory for identity. You've mistaken your track record for your name. But the past is not a prophecy unless you agree with it. The law does not remember. The law does not punish. It only reflects. And so long as you continue to identify as the one who must try harder, heal more, or earn it, you will remain locked in the posture of postponement forever, training for a war that is already over. You have been practicing defeat in your inner speech, saying you trust while scanning the horizon for validation, asking for signs because you don't yet believe your own word. This is the fracture. This is the error. You are still living like a man on the outside of his own kingdom, waiting for a gate that only opens from within. And every time you speak of lack, even casually, you tie yourself once more to the identity you say you're leaving behind. You must see it now. You've been waiting for circumstances to call you a winner, so you could finally believe it. But belief does not follow evidence. It precedes it. You act as if not because you're deluded, but because the feeling is causative. You step into the state before the mirror changes, or the mirror has no choice but to reflect the old you. Do you not see? You are not reacting to reality. You are rehearsing it. You have been faithful, but not to the truth. You have been faithful to your unworthiness, to your delays, to your justifications. You have mastered the art of partial embodiment, speaking like a king, but moving like a beggar, declaring the law but checking your outer reality for proof. And the law, being just, responds not to your words, but to your tone. And your tone has said, I am not yet. I am not enough. I am still waiting. But today you are exposed. And exposure is not condemnation. It is initiation. Now that you see the contradiction, you must choose. Will you continue speaking truth while living lie? Will you continue trying to manifest through effort instead of assumption? Will you keep asking the world to approve what your soul already knows? Or will you rise? Will you now walk, talk, breathe, and remain as one who was meant to win? Because until you do, no law, no teacher, no technique can save you from the identity you refuse to lay down. There is no power outside of your assumption. Let this truth pierce through every false altar you've ever built. You were told that life is earned, that favor must be proven, that results require approval from something greater than you. But I tell you now, you are the greater. You are the point of origin. You are the operant power. The feeling that you dare to accept as already true, even in the face of its complete physical absence, is the womb from which your world is born. Not someday, not when the signs agree. Now, always now. Victory is not achieved. It is remembered. To act like you were meant to win is to remember that you already have. Every outcome you desire, every condition you seek to alter, every door you hope to walk through already exists in the eternal present. The only variable is your state of being, your frequency, the inner tone you carry in silence. That is the gatekeeper. That is the architect of all outcomes. This is the divine pattern hidden within Scripture. He calleth things that are not seen as though they were, not because he is playing make-believe, but because he knows the invisible is more real than the visible. He does not ask the outer world for confirmation. He declares it from within and lets the outer rearrange. You were taught to believe when you see. I tell you, you will see when you believe, and not 1 second soon. Assumption is not performance. It is not enthusiasm. It is inner congruence, the complete alignment of identity, inner speech, and expectation around one sacred fact. It is already so. That alignment is what produces the echo. That is the divine pattern. And until that alignment is held, not visited, but held, the outer must remain in disarray. To live like you were meant to win is not about arrogance. It is about authority. The same authority that stilled storms, multiplied loaves, raised Lazarus. These were not miracles. They were demonstrations of law, of inner dominion over outer reflection. Every man who walked in spiritual power first walked in assumption. He was the thing before it arrived. He acted from the end, not toward it. That is the reversal you must now accept. You have imagined winning as the reward. It is not. It is the starting point. Every desire in your heart is a divine memory. It is the echo of something you've already claimed in higher realms. And the only delay in its appearance is the contradiction you carry between knowing and being. You affirm abundance but assume lack. You declare love but embody rejection. You speak freedom but still wear the chains of fear. And the law, being impersonal, being faithful, returns only what you are, not what you claim. There is no one to change but self. Not the people around you, not your circumstances, not even your behavior, only your state. The law of consciousness is not moved by toil, but by tone. You want to win? Then become the winner now, in breath, in posture, in thought, and let the world catch up to what you've dared to accept as law. Stop negotiating with conditions. Stop reasoning with time. Time is not your master. It is your servant. It obeys the inner decree. If you say it must take 6 months, then it must. If you say I'm not ready yet, then you will never be. But if you say I am now who I choose to be, and you hold that assumption in the furnace of feeling, without panic, without wavering, then nothing can stop its externalization. The law is mechanical, but your assumption is sovereign. To act like you were meant to win is to assume the position of the already crowned, not because the world approves, but because your soul remembers. The crown has always been yours. The robe has always hung within reach. But you keep dressing in the garments of delay. You keep speaking as the one waiting, even while you affirm the promise. No more. From this moment, you must become intolerant of the contradiction. Assume the end and dwell there. Walk from it. Speak from it. Imagine only from it. And if the old voice returns, you do not argue. You return quietly, calmly, completely to the state of the winner, the one who no longer chases outcomes, the one who commands them in silence, because that is the only way anything real has ever been created. Now we descend into the furnace of practice, not a practice of striving but of stillness, not a performance for the world, but a sacred vow kept within. For the one who was meant to win does not beg the mirror to change. He becomes the reflection he desires and lets the mirror obey. If you will do what I now say, not once, not when convenient, but daily, steadily, as one who knows this is the path home, then you will see what others call impossible bend before you without force. Each morning, before the day lays its hand upon you, before memory and personality wrap themselves around you like garments, enter the silence. Not to ask, not to plead, but to assume. Sit in the throne of your being and declare inwardly, I am the one who was meant to win. Not with noise, not with theatrics, but with complete inner alignment. Feel the truth of that sentence, not as something you hope for, but as something you remember. Let your breath carry the ease of one who has nothing to prove. That breath is the banner of the new state. Stand before your own reflection, not to be admired, but to be remembered. Look into your own eyes and say within, this is the face of the man who commands his world. This is the expression of the one for whom all things move into place. Then go out and move through the day as that one. You do not need to convince others. You do not need to explain your faith. The tone will do all the work. That inner command, silently spoken, will go before you and rearrange the field. Become exquisitely aware of your inner speech. The inner talk you indulge, when no one is watching, is the most creative thing you do all day. If your inner conversations still sound like desperation, explanation, justification, you are rehearsing defeat. Replace them not with empty slogans, but with language befitting a victor. Hear yourself being congratulated. Imagine others recognizing the shift in your presence. But do not fantasize as a future. Speak inwardly as if it is already happening. This is the reversal you must master. The winner is not crowned at the end. The crown is assumed at the beginning. You enter every room as if you've already been affirmed by heaven, not to impress, but to express the state, the vibration, the tone of the fulfilled man. Others will feel it. They may not understand it, but they will respond. Identify now the rituals of the loser, the ways in which you unconsciously announce delay to the world. Hesitation, apology, over-explaining, needing feedback. These are the leaky behaviors of someone unsure of his right to win. Cut them, not with shame, but with clarity. Every act, every word, every breath must now rise from the assumption of victory. You must treat your tone like it is holy, because it is. It is the only thing that creates. When the world resists you, and it will, it is not a sign that the law is failing. It is a test of your frequency. Will you react? Will you doubt? Or will you return inward and hold the state? That is the entire curriculum of the winner. Holding the end while the middle screams, remaining still while the storm performs. Do not break the posture. Do not abandon the tone. The law is faithful. If you remain, it must conform. Each night before sleep, enter once more the state of victory. Hear the praise. Feel the completion. Dwell in the inner scene where your world has already caught up to who you chose to be. This is not delusion. It is dominion. You are rehearsing the end, not as fantasy, but as fact. Sleep in that vibration. Let your subconscious receive that tone, and it will do the work. This is your life now, walking as one who has already won. No matter the outer picture, no matter the delay, no matter the appearance, you act like the one who was meant to win because that is who you are. And every moment you hold that identity, the world is being silently bent into shape. You are not chasing, you are being. And being is the seed of every miracle. So when the doubt comes, and it will, you do not explain. You do not confess. You return. Return to the tone. Return to the breath. Return to the sentence. I am the one who was meant to win. And you walk on. You have moved through life as though your success were still under negotiation, your worth still pending a verdict. But I tell you, there is no jury. There is no trial. There is only the word. And the word was always in your mouth. I am. That is the final and only law. This is your rebirth, and it will not announce itself with thunder. It will arrive as stillness, a certainty that needs no signature, a breath that no longer rushes, a posture that no longer bends to be accepted. You will speak less. You will smile more. You will move as if life has already cleared the path before you, because it has. Because you cleared it the moment you assumed the one who was meant to win. So stand now, not in defiance, but in memory of the throne you once left and the crown you now reclaim. You are the one reality follows. If this stirred something inside you, it was meant for you, not by accident, not by chance, but by alignment. The words were not information, they were confirmation. That quiet thrum beneath your ribs, that breath you didn't realize you were holding, that stillness where the mind finally went silent, that was the signal. The veil just lifted, and now you must choose what to do with what you remember.
Good evening, my friends. Tonight I want to speak to you about something that will revolutionize how you approach this law, how you impress your subconscious mind, and how you command your reality. I'm going to show you a principle so simple, so profound, yet so completely overlooked that most students of this teaching spend years trying to manifest through sheer force of will when they could be commanding their subconscious mind with surgical precision. This is mind control in its purest form. Not control over others, not manipulation of circumstances, but absolute control over your own consciousness, specifically control over the mechanism through which your subconscious mind receives and executes its orders. And when you understand this principle, when you learn to use it with intention, manifestation becomes inevitable, not hoped for, not wished for, inevitable. Because you will have discovered the master key that unlocks your subconscious mind's creative power without resistance, without delay, without question. Let me begin by revealing something most never realize. Your subconscious mind is being commanded every moment of every day. Not by your affirmations alone, not by your visualizations only, but by something far more subtle, far more persistent, far more powerful. Questions. The questions you ask yourself, whether consciously or unconsciously, are commands to your subconscious mind. And your subconscious, being the obedient servant that it is, must answer them. It has no choice. When you ask yourself, why can't I ever succeed? Your subconscious mind hears that as a command. Show me reasons why I cannot succeed. And it obeys faithfully, immediately, without question. It will search through your memories, your experiences, your perceptions, and it will present you with evidence, proof, seemingly undeniable proof, that you cannot succeed. Not because the evidence was always there, but because you commanded your subconscious to find it. When you ask, what's wrong with me? Your subconscious hears, find everything that is deficient, lacking, broken within me. And it does. It will compile a complete inventory of every flaw, every failure, every limitation, real or imagined, and present it to you as truth. Because that's what you asked for. Do you see what's happening? You are commanding your subconscious mind all day long through the questions you ask. And your subconscious, being the faithful servant, delivers exactly what you've requested. Most people are giving their subconscious mind commands to prove their limitations, to confirm their fears, to validate their unworthiness. And they wonder why their life reflects exactly that. But tonight, you're going to learn to reverse this. You're going to learn to ask questions that command your subconscious to prove your power, confirm your success, validate your worthiness. And when you do this, when you master the art of the properly formed question, manifestation cannot be stopped. Let me show you how this works. Your subconscious mind is not a reasoning mind. It does not analyze, does not judge, does not question. It simply accepts and executes. When you make a statement, an affirmation, your conscious mind often interferes. It says, but is this true? Where's the evidence? This doesn't match my current reality. And that doubt, that questioning, that resistance weakens the impression on your subconscious. But when you ask a question, particularly one that assumes the desired state is already true, something fascinating happens. Your conscious mind cannot resist it, because a question doesn't demand belief. It only demands an answer. And your subconscious mind, hearing the question, immediately goes to work finding or creating an answer. When you ask, why am I so fortunate? Your subconscious doesn't argue. It doesn't say, but you're not fortunate. It simply begins searching for evidence of your fortune. And what it searches for, it finds. Or if it doesn't find it, it creates it. This is the principle. What you seek, you find. What you ask for, you receive. Not because the universe is generous, but because consciousness creates reality. And a properly formed question directs consciousness with absolute precision. Now let me connect this to everything I've taught you about assumption. I've told you many times, you must assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled. You must dwell in the state of already being what you desire to be. You must think from the end, not of the end. But here's what most miss. You can encode these assumptions into questions. Instead of affirming, I am wealthy, and fighting with the doubt that arises, you can ask, why am I so abundantly provided for? Do you feel the difference? The statement, I am wealthy, might trigger resistance. No, you're not. Look at your bank account. But the question, why am I so abundantly provided for, triggers a search. Let me find the evidence. Let me notice the provision. Let me recall the blessings. And in that search, in that noticing, you are dwelling in the consciousness of provision. You are assuming abundance by the very act of asking the question. The question itself is an assumption. When you ask, how did I manifest this so easily? You are assuming it's already done. You are assuming ease. You are assuming success. And your subconscious, hearing this assumption in the form of a question, begins to align your thoughts, your feelings, your perceptions, your actions with the reality where that question makes sense. It must close the gap between the question and the answer. And in closing that gap, it creates the manifestation. Here's why questions are so powerful. They create what I call an open loop in consciousness. Your subconscious mind abhors an open loop. It feels incomplete, unfinished, like a story with no ending. So when you ask a question, especially one that assumes your desire is already fulfilled, your subconscious becomes obsessed with closing that loop. It will work day and night, consciously and unconsciously, to find or create an answer that satisfies the question. If you ask, why is everything working out perfectly for me? Your subconscious must find an answer. It must close the loop. It must prove the assumption embedded in the question. And in its search to close that loop, it rearranges your perceptions, your thoughts, your focus, your very reality, until the answer becomes obvious, undeniable, manifest. This is why questions are so effective, where affirmations sometimes fail. An affirmation can be rejected. I am successful. No, I'm not. But a question cannot be rejected. It demands an answer. And in seeking that answer, the mind must dwell in the assumption that makes the question valid. Why am I so successful? Forces your mind to assume success in order to answer the question. There's no way around it. An assumption persisted in becomes fact. Now, not all questions work this way. You must understand how to form them properly. A disempowering question like, why can't I ever get ahead, is perfectly formed to command your subconscious to prove your limitation. But we want the opposite. We want questions that command your subconscious to prove your power, your abundance, your fulfillment. So the properly formed question must contain these elements. First, it must assume the desired state is already true. Not will I become wealthy, but why am I so wealthy? Not can I manifest love, but why is love flowing to me so effortlessly? Not how do I get successful, but how did I become so successful? Do you see? The question assumes the end is already accomplished. And in assuming, it commands your subconscious to prove that assumption. Second, the question must evoke feeling. Remember, I've told you, feeling is the secret. Consciousness without feeling is sterile, impotent, unable to create. So your questions must not be dry, intellectual exercises. They must stir something within you. Why do I feel so deeply loved? Makes you search for the feeling of being loved. How is it that joy flows through every area of my life? Makes you notice joy, dwell in joy, become joy. The question evokes the feeling, and the feeling impresses the subconscious, and the impression becomes manifestation. Third, the question must be asked from the state you wish to occupy. This is crucial. You're not asking as the person who lacks. You're asking as the person who has. You're not asking, why don't I have money, from a state of poverty. You're asking, why am I so abundantly provided for, from a state of wealth consciousness. The question comes from the end, from the fulfilled state, from the identity you're claiming. And when you ask from that state, you are already dwelling in it. The question itself is the dwelling. So how do you use this in your daily practice? First, become aware of the questions you're already asking unconsciously. Throughout your day, notice the questions running in the background of your mind. Why is this so hard? What's wrong with me? Why can't I ever catch a break? What if this doesn't work? These are commands to your subconscious, and your subconscious is obeying them, proving them, manifesting them. So catch them, notice them, and replace them. Second, deliberately ask questions that assume your desire fulfilled. Not occasionally, not just during your practice time, but throughout your day. When you wake, why do I feel so alive and purposeful today? When you work, how is it that opportunities flow to me so easily? When you interact with others, why do people respond to me with such warmth and respect? When you rest, how is my life unfolding more perfectly than I imagined? Each question is a command to your subconscious. Each question creates an open loop that must be closed through manifestation. Third, ask these questions in the state I call the silence. Before sleep, when your conscious mind is quieting and your subconscious is most receptive, ask your questions, not desperately, not hoping, but knowingly. Ask as the person who already has the answer, because they're already living the reality the question assumes. Why am I so blessed? Asked in the silence, with feeling from the state of being blessed, impresses your subconscious powerfully. And your subconscious, receiving this impression as you drift into sleep, works all night to make it manifest. You wake to find circumstances rearranged, thoughts shifted, opportunities appeared, the answer to your question becoming visible. Let me give you examples of the kinds of questions that command manifestation. These are not questions of doubt, not questions of seeking, but questions that assume the desired state and command your subconscious to prove it. For wealth, why does money flow to me so naturally? How is it that I'm always abundantly provided for? Why do I feel so financially free? For love, why am I so deeply loved? How is it that I attract such wonderful people? Why does love find me wherever I go? For success, how did I manifest this so easily? Why does everything I touch succeed? How is it that opportunities appear exactly when I need them? For health, why do I feel so vibrant and alive? How is my body healing itself so perfectly? Why is wellness my natural state? Do you feel how different these questions are from will I have money? Or can I find love? Or how do I get healthy? The first set assumes. The second set doubts. The first set commands your subconscious to prove fulfillment. The second set commands it to prove lack. Choose your questions wisely, because they are choosing your reality. Now let me show you the most powerful type of question. The one that shifts your entire identity, not just your circumstances. These questions don't ask about having something. They ask about being someone. Who am I now that I live in such abundance? Who have I become that everything flows to me so easily? Who am I that people respond to me with such respect and admiration? These questions force your consciousness to occupy a new identity, not to hope for it, not to wish for it, but to be it in order to answer the question. You cannot answer, who am I now that I live in abundance, without assuming the identity of someone who lives in abundance. And the moment you assume that identity to answer the question, you are dwelling in that state. You are being that person. You are impressing that consciousness on your subconscious, and your subconscious, receiving that impression, must make it manifest. This is the ultimate form of mind control. You are controlling what identity your mind occupies, and your identity determines your reality, always. Now you will ask these questions, and your current circumstances might contradict them. You'll ask, why am I so wealthy? And look at an empty bank account. You'll ask, why am I so loved? And wake up alone. You'll ask, why is everything working out perfectly? And face obstacles. And your conscious mind will say, this is ridiculous. The question doesn't match reality. But here's what you must understand. The question isn't describing your current reality. It's commanding your future reality. You're not asking to get information. You're asking to give instruction. Your subconscious doesn't care whether the answer exists in your current circumstances. It only cares about finding or creating an answer. So when you persist in asking, why am I so wealthy? Despite seeing lack, your subconscious begins to search for wealth, to notice wealth, to attract wealth, to create wealth. The outer world must eventually conform to the inner questioning. But you must persist. You must ask from the end. You must assume the question is valid even when appearances deny it. Because the moment you let appearances dictate your questions, you're back to asking, why am I so poor? And your subconscious obeys that command instead. Hold to your questions. Ask them persistently. Feel them deeply. And watch as your reality rearranges itself to answer them. Let me give you one question that encompasses everything I've taught tonight. One question that, if asked persistently from the proper state, will transform your entire life. Why is my life unfolding more beautifully than I ever imagined? Think about what this question assumes. It assumes your life is unfolding. Present tense. Happening now. It assumes it's unfolding beautifully. Not struggling, not barely surviving. Beautifully. It assumes it's exceeding your imagination, not just meeting expectations, surpassing them. And it asks why. which commands your subconscious to search for evidence, to notice beauty, to recognize perfection, to dwell in the consciousness of life unfolding magnificently. If you asked only this question, persistently, feelingly, from the state of one whose life is indeed unfolding beautifully, your entire reality would shift to match. Because your subconscious, hearing this command day after day, would have no choice but to close the loop by making it undeniably true. Tonight before you sleep, I want you to choose one question. Just one. A question that assumes your desire is already fulfilled. A question that stirs feeling within you. A question that comes from the state you wish to occupy. It might be, why am I so blessed? Or how is everything working out so perfectly? Or why do I feel so deeply fulfilled? Whatever question resonates with the state you're claiming, ask it. Not once. Ask it repeatedly as you drift into sleep. Let it be the last conscious thought before you surrender to the subconscious. Why am I so blessed? Why am I so blessed? Feel it. Mean it. Ask it from the state of being blessed, not from the state of wanting blessing. And as you fall asleep with that question saturating your consciousness, your subconscious mind begins its work. It searches, it rearranges, it creates, it manifests. All night long, beneath your conscious awareness, it's closing the loop. It's finding the answer. It's making the question true. And you wake to discover your reality shifting. Not dramatically all at once, perhaps, but shifting, moving, rearranging itself to reflect the consciousness you commanded through your question. Do this every night. One question, asked persistently, felt deeply from the end, and watch your life transform. Your questions are commands to your subconscious mind. When you ask, why can't I succeed? You command proof of failure. When you ask, why am I so blessed? You command proof of blessing. The properly formed question assumes the wish fulfilled, evokes feeling, and comes from the state you wish to occupy. Ask these questions persistently before sleep, and your subconscious must answer by manifesting the reality the question assumes. Thank you and good evening. This is Best of Lectures, and I will see you in the next video. Good evening, my friends. Tonight I want to share with you perhaps the most difficult yet most liberating teaching I have ever given. You must completely ignore what your outer reality is telling you. I can already see some of you tensing at these words. Your rational mind is protesting. But Neville, you're thinking, I have real problems, real debt, real sickness, real loneliness. How can I ignore what is right in front of me? And that is precisely the question I will answer tonight. Not with empty platitudes or wishful thinking, but with the profound understanding of how reality actually operates and how you can consciously use this knowledge to transform your entire life. What I am about to teach you will sound like insanity to those who are enslaved by their senses. But to those who are ready to claim their power as conscious creators, it will be the key that unlocks every door. Let me ask you something. Who told you that what you see is more real than what you imagine? Who gave your eyes the authority to dictate what is possible for you? Who decided that the numbers in your bank account have more power than the feelings in your consciousness? You have been hypnotized since childhood to believe that the physical world is the ultimate reality, that what you can touch and measure and verify with your senses is the truth, and everything else is merely fantasy or delusion. This is the greatest lie ever told to humanity. And as long as you believe it, you will remain imprisoned by circumstances, forever reacting to a world that seems to impose itself upon you. The truth is this: what you call your outer reality is not reality at all. It is a photograph of the past. It is a frozen moment reflecting consciousness that you held yesterday, last week, last year. It has no power to create your future unless you give it that power by continuing to react to it as though it were the ultimate truth. I knew a man who was so imprisoned by his outer reality that he could not even conceive of change. His business had failed. His marriage had ended. His health was deteriorating. Every day he would wake up and survey this wreckage. And every day he would say, "This is my life. This is what is real. This is what I must accept." And I said to him, "You are not accepting reality. You are creating it. Every moment you spend focused on these conditions, every thought you give to these circumstances, every feeling of hopelessness you indulge, you are impressing upon your consciousness the very state that will perpetuate these conditions. But these things actually happened, he protested. My business did fail. My wife did leave. My body is sick. These are facts. They are facts about what has already been created. I replied. They are the harvest of seeds you planted in consciousness in the past. But right now, in this very moment, you are planting new seeds. The question is, are you planting seeds of the same barren crop? Or are you planting seeds of a new and abundant harvest? You see, your outer reality is nothing more than the manifested result of your former states of consciousness. It is not happening to you, it is happening from you. And the moment you understand this, you gain the power to change it. Here is the principle that will set you free. Your consciousness is the only creative power in your universe. Not the economy, not other people, not luck or fate or circumstance. Your consciousness and your consciousness alone creates your experience. Every condition in your life, every situation you face, every person who appears in your world exists as they are because of the state of consciousness you have been occupying. Change your state of consciousness, and everything in your outer world must change to match it. This is not theory. This is not philosophy. This is observable, demonstrable law. The outer world is effect, never cause. It is the reflection, not the source. It is the shadow, not the substance. When you look in a mirror and see an image you don't like, you do not try to change the mirror. You recognize that the mirror is simply reflecting what stands before it. If you want to see a different image, you must change what is standing before the mirror. Your outer reality works exactly the same way. It is a perfect mirror reflecting your consciousness. If you want to see different circumstances, you cannot change the reflection directly. You must change the consciousness that is creating the reflection. A woman came to me who had been trying to manifest a new job for over a year. She had applied to hundreds of positions. She had networked tirelessly. She had done everything the world tells you to do to change your circumstances through external action. But nothing was working, and she was becoming increasingly desperate and discouraged. I said to her, "You are trying to change the reflection while standing in the same place before the mirror. You are taking action in the outer world while maintaining the consciousness of unemployment, of lack, of not being wanted. And the mirror can only reflect what you are broadcasting from consciousness." "But I'm trying so hard," she said. "I'm doing everything I know to do." "That is exactly the problem," I replied. Your trying, your effort, your desperate action, all of this confirms to consciousness that you do not have what you desire. You are standing before the mirror as an unemployed person desperately seeking employment. The mirror must reflect that reality back to you. I taught her to stop trying to change the outer world and to instead change her consciousness. You must assume you are already employed in your ideal position. I said, you must feel it, think from it, move through your day with the quiet confidence of someone who is already successfully employed. She struggled with this at first. How could she feel employed when she was clearly not employed? How could she ignore the daily rejections, the mounting bills, the concerned questions from family members? But I explained those rejections are reflections of your former state. They are old news, already on their way out. Right now you can occupy a new state, the state of being employed, of being valued, of being successful. And as you persist in this new state, the mirror must change. It has no choice. She committed to this practice. Every morning she would spend time in consciousness as an employed person. She would feel the satisfaction of meaningful work, imagine conversations with colleagues, experience the security of steady income. And throughout her day, whenever evidence of unemployment appeared, she would recognize it as old reflection and return to her assumption. Within 3 weeks, she received an unexpected call from a company she had interviewed with months earlier. They had created a new position specifically suited to her skills and wanted her to start immediately. The job was better than anything she had been applying for. The mirror had changed because she had changed what was standing before it. Now this is where most people fail in their manifestation attempts. They understand the principle intellectually. They grasp that consciousness creates reality. But when faced with concrete evidence that contradicts their desire, they cave. They let the outer reality dictate their inner state. They affirm abundance in the morning, but when the bills arrive in the afternoon, they panic. They visualize health at night, but when symptoms persist in the morning, they despair. They assume love in meditation, but when they face another lonely evening, they resign themselves to their fate. This is giving ultimate authority to the outer reality. This is bowing before the false god of physical evidence. This is allowing the mirror to tell you who you are instead of you telling the mirror who you are. To successfully ignore outer reality requires tremendous courage. It requires that you remain loyal to your unseen assumption even when everything visible contradicts it. It requires that you give more weight to your imagined reality than to your perceived reality. Let me tell you about a gentleman who demonstrated this courage perfectly. He had been diagnosed with a condition that doctors told him was irreversible and progressive. The medical evidence was clear. The symptoms were worsening. His prognosis was grim. Every expert, every authority, every piece of evidence told him the same thing. Accept this condition as your reality and learn to live with increasing limitation. But he refused. Not from denial, not from fear, but from understanding that the medical diagnosis was merely reporting on his former state of consciousness, and consciousness could change at any moment. He began to completely disregard the outer evidence. When symptoms appeared, he would observe them without giving them meaning or power. This is what was, he would say to himself. But what is now being created in consciousness is perfect health. He spent time each day dwelling in the consciousness of perfect health, not hoping for it, not working toward it, but assuming it, feeling it, thinking from it as though it were already his present reality. His doctors grew concerned. His family thought he was delusional, but he remained steadfast in his assumption, regardless of what the outer reality continued to show him. And gradually, impossibly according to medical understanding, his condition began to reverse. Tests that had shown deterioration began showing improvement. Symptoms that had been worsening began subsiding. Within a year, his doctors could find no trace of the condition they had declared irreversible. He had demonstrated the courage to disregard evidence. He had refused to let the outer reality be his master. And the outer reality, having no power of its own, had conformed to his inner assumption. So how do you actually do this? How do you ignore outer reality in a practical, sustainable way when you are surrounded by evidence that contradicts your desire? Let me give you the method I have taught thousands of people to use with remarkable success. First, you must understand that ignoring outer reality does not mean you pretend it doesn't exist. You acknowledge what you see, but you refuse to accept it as permanent or powerful. You see it as old news, as a fading photograph, as the dying echo of former consciousness. Second, you must create a new reality in your imagination with such vividness and feeling that it becomes more real to you than your physical circumstances. This is the key. Your imagined reality must feel more substantial, more true, more compelling than your physical reality. How do you do this? Through what I call the evening practice. Every night, as you prepare for sleep, you enter into your imagination with a specific purpose. You imagine a scene that would only exist if your desire were already fulfilled. Not a scene of getting what you want, but a scene that implies you already have it. A scene that takes place after your desire has manifested. If you desire financial abundance, do not imagine receiving money. Imagine what you would be doing with that abundance already in your possession. Perhaps you imagine writing a check for a charity donation with ease. Perhaps you imagine a conversation where you casually mention a purchase you made without any concern about cost. Make this scene specific, short, and sensory-rich. Experience it from inside it, as though you are actually there. Feel what you would feel. See what you would see. Hear what you would hear. Make it so vivid that for those few moments, your physical circumstances fade away and this imagined reality becomes your reality. Do this every night without fail. Fall asleep in this imagined reality, in the feeling of the wish fulfilled. This impresses your consciousness with your new assumption. This plants the seed of your new reality. But here is where most people stop. And this is why they fail. The evening practice plants the seed. But you must nurture it throughout the day. Throughout your waking hours, you must practice thinking from your new assumption rather than from your current circumstances. When you face evidence that contradicts your desire, you must consciously label it as old reality and return your attention to your new assumption. If you desire abundance but receive a bill in the mail, instead of reacting with worry, you recognize this belongs to the old reality. In my new reality, I am abundantly supplied. Then you deliberately return to the feeling of abundance. If you desire health but experience symptoms, instead of fearing the worst, you recognize this is the fading echo of former consciousness. My new reality is perfect health. Then you return to the feeling of vitality. This is not denial. This is conscious selection of which reality you will feed with your attention and feeling. Because whatever you feed grows, and whatever you starve dies. Now you may be wondering, if I ignore my outer reality and dwell in my imagination, how will my circumstances actually change? Don't I need to take action? Don't I need to work with the world as it is? This is the beautiful mystery of how consciousness operates. When you dwell persistently in a new state of consciousness, pathways open that were invisible from your former state. Opportunities appear that could not have appeared before. People say and do things that create circumstances you could never have orchestrated consciously. I call this the bridge of incidents. You do not need to figure out how your desire will manifest. You do not need to plan the steps. You simply need to dwell in the state of the wish fulfilled, and the bridge will build itself. A young woman wanted to travel to Europe, but had no money, no time off from work, and no apparent way to make the trip happen. From her current state of consciousness, it was genuinely impossible, but she learned to ignore this outer reality. Every night she would imagine herself in the specific places she wanted to visit. She would feel the cobblestones under her feet in Paris, smell the flowers in an Italian garden, hear the sounds of a London street. She made these imaginal experiences so vivid that they became more real to her than her daily routine. And she would catch herself throughout the day starting to think about all the reasons she couldn't go. I don't have the money. I can't get time off. It's not practical. But each time she would stop these thoughts and return to her assumption, I am someone who travels to Europe. This is natural for me. This is my reality. She did not scheme or force. She simply persisted in this new state of consciousness while going about her normal life. Within 2 months, a series of unexpected events unfolded. Her company announced a new program, sending employees to European offices for training. She was selected. The trip was paid. She spent 3 weeks visiting the exact cities she had been imagining. The bridge had built itself, not through her conscious planning, but through her persistent assumption that she was someone who traveled to Europe. Let me leave you with this final truth. Your willingness to ignore outer reality and dwell in your desired state reveals whether you truly understand this teaching or whether you are still enslaved by the tyranny of the senses. If you can look at circumstances that contradict your desire and remain peaceful, confident, and certain, you understand. If you can maintain your assumption despite all evidence to the contrary, you understand. If you can give more reality to your imagination than to your perception, you understand. But if you are constantly disturbed by outer conditions, if you let evidence shake your faith, if you cannot hold your assumption in the face of contradiction, then you are still worshipping the false god of physical reality. You are still bowing before the mirror instead of recognizing that you are what creates the reflection. The outer world has no power except the power you give it through your acceptance of it as ultimate reality. The moment you withdraw that power, the moment you recognize it as reflection rather than source, as effect rather than cause, as shadow rather than substance, you are free. Free to create consciously. Free to assume any state you choose. Free to manifest any desire you hold. Free to live from your imagination rather than from your circumstances. This is not escapism. This is not delusion. This is the most practical, powerful truth you can ever apply. Consciousness creates reality, and you control consciousness. Ignore outer reality as the final authority. Give your loyalty to your imagined reality. Persist in your assumption regardless of what you see, hear, or are told by others. And watch as the outer world, which has no creative power of its own, slowly and then suddenly conforms itself to match the reality you have dared to claim in consciousness. The mirror must reflect what stands before it, change what stands before it, and the reflection must change. This is law. This is power. This is your inheritance as a conscious creator. Ignore outer reality. Dwell in your desired state. Persist until assumption hardens into fact. Thank you, and good evening. As always, thank you for joining me on this journey into the depths of consciousness. Remember, you are not here by accident. You are here because your soul is ready for this truth. Take these teachings and let them transform not just your mind, but your entire reality. Until we meet again in consciousness, keep assuming your greatness and living from the end of your desires. This is Best of Lectures, and I'll see you in the next video.